You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Wayback Wednesday, I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. I've got a lot of ground to cover tonight, got a lot of different pictures to share with you. Before we get to that, though, I want to run down a little list of things I'd kind of put together for tonight. I'm going to start off with a little bit of sad news. Many of you may remember Mrs. Antoinette Suter, Dr. Suter's wife, Tom Suter, the local sportscaster's mother. She passed away this past Saturday, at 99 years old, and sadly it was on her birthday. She was born March the 18th of 1924, and she passed away March the 18th of 2023. So condolences from all of us here at WHIG to the Suter family. I didn't know Miss Suter personally, but everything I've ever heard or read about the lady says she was remarkable and just a really sweet lady, and had a lot of adoring fans all over the city and indeed the state. So anyway, got a visit this week from one of our viewers, Bob Lee. Bob's a regular viewer, and he popped in the shop for a short visit and kind of put a bug in my ear and asked me to do a little bit of research. And so we're going to talk a little bit tonight about the Civil Air Patrol. I didn't spend a lot of time on this. I kind of already had a format, if you will, for tonight's show. But I did find a couple of things I wanted to share with you. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And Bob told me he had a friend down in Texas. So he asked me today how the viewer in Texas could watch the show. So viewer in Texas, Bob didn't give me your name if you're watching. Glad to have you with us tonight. Feel free to give us a call anytime during the show. The phone lines are always open. The number is 252-407-1111. Again, 252-407-1111. If you want to make a comment or share a memory with us, feel free to give us a call anytime. I'm going to talk a little bit about Mack Haven tonight. We've talked about Mack Haven before. It was the grand home of J.W. Hines and his wife. Beautiful home that's gone through many renditions over the years. In addition to being a private home, of course, it was also a restaurant for a number of years. It's been recently purchased and reconfigured. Now it's an event venue. They have weddings there and so forth. I've seen a few pictures online of the interior now, and it's gorgeous. I've never been in Mack Haven. That's on my list of things to do. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about streets that have extended their distance or changed directions or changed names in some cases. I've been here all my life, 64, going on 65 years now, and I never knew until very recently that Gray Street, just as an example, didn't always go around and join into Grand Avenue over there at the intersection of Grand Avenue and Church Street. But it did. It stopped way before you got there, and so we'll talk about that, show you some old maps and so forth. And we're also going to show you some really neat aerial photographs. Charlie Killebrew, we talk about Charlie quite often on this show. His photography work is renowned, and I love looking at his old photographs. Unfortunately, these that I'm sharing with you tonight all come out of the Telegram. They're all from 50, 60 years ago. But they're aerial photographs, and there's some really neat ones of Rocky Mountain I have not seen before, so we'll be sharing those with you. And lastly, starting sometime next month, we're going to add a new segment to the show, and so I'm going to be looking at some feedback from you, the viewers. I'm going to start taking a film photographer, videographer, if you will, and going on site to some of the Rocky Mountain historic places. Just a few that I've thought about visiting. The May and Gorham Drugstore, for example, downtown Rocky Mount. What used to be the old First National Bank, now it's Larima's Coffee Shop. The Masonic Temple. The old Camasco building, Pepsi-Cola bottling plant was there for a while, of course. But what we're going to do is take a video camera and go in some of these old buildings and just kind of videotape how they were on the inside, how they are now, I should say, and hopefully bring back some memories. I've heard a lot of stories, for example, about the teenage club that used to meet down in the basement of the Masonic Temple. I took dance lessons there when I was in I don't know, 12, 13 years old, took ballroom dancing. And so I remember just that floor where we studied dance at, but I never went down in the basement, and I've always been curious about what was down there. There's probably nothing there now, of course, but at one time that's where the teenage club in Rocky Mount met, was the basement of the Masonic Temple over on Church Street. So we'll get to that. Next month we're going to go out, like I said, and start taking some video footage of some of these old buildings. So if there's somewhere you'd like to see, if you'd like to see inside a building, Mac Haven, another place I want to go into, and we'll videotape inside Mac Haven, and just share with you what these buildings are like today. Obviously, it's different than they were in their heyday, 40, 50, 60, 70 years or more ago. But I thought it'd be neat to go into some of these old buildings, just look and see what they look like today. So that's on the schedule for down the road. Now, I mentioned that Bob Leake had stopped by the shop and was telling me a little about the Civil Air Patrol. And you know, if you're like me, you kind of maybe have a limited knowledge of what the Civil Air Patrol is, what it does. And so I did a little bit of research before the night show just to kind of throw some information out there to you. And basically, in the simplest terms, the Civil Air Patrol is an organization made up of private pilots, non-military, if you will. Some are probably ex-military pilots, but the whole point is they are civilians. And over the years, they've engaged in a lot of different services. Back in World War II, for example, they flew patrols out over the ocean looking for things like submarines, enemy ships, and so forth. And sadly, there have been somewhere around 26, I think, that have lost their lives during World War II, especially. It was, I think, 26. Probably more since then. But I found an article. I'm just going to read a little bit of it here. I don't want to. It's kind of long, so. But it says the Civil Air Patrol was conceived in the late 1930s by aviation advocate Gil Rob Wilson, who foresaw general aviation's potential to supplement America's military operations. With the help of New York Mayor Fiorello H. LaGuardia, in his capacity as then director of the Office of Civilian Defense, the Civil Air Patrol was created with Administrative Order 9, signed by LaGuardia on December 1st, 1941, and published 8th of December, 1941. Now, if you remember your history, it is exactly one day after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. The very next day was when the Civil Air Patrol got started officially. And so from that point going forward, they flew multiple missions, hundreds of thousands of miles up and down the coast on both east and west coast, again looking for everything from enemy warships to submarines and so forth. And 26 did die during those missions. And so Bobby mentioned there was one who was from here locally in this area right around here. So I did some searching. I looked for, first of all, just those that were killed. And as I said, it was 26 that were killed during these missions in World War II. The closest one I could find to Rocky Mount was actually in Nashville. But there was a First Lieutenant Julian L. Cooper, listed as being from Nashville, North Carolina, who died the 21st of December, 1942. Now, I plan to do a little more research and try to find out exactly what happened. My guess is a crash. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I'm guessing. But in any case, it was obviously hazardous duty to some extent, even though they might have been shot at by enemy fire, flying up and down the coast with limited visibility. Sometimes storms could blow up fairly quickly at the coast. And so there was a certain degree of danger involved in what they were doing. And so anyway, we're going to do a more thorough segment on the Civil Air Patrol in a future show. But I wanted to share that with you tonight. And thanks, Bob, for bringing it to my attention. We'll certainly go back to it in a future show. Okay. One of the things that I was doing this week was looking, every now and again I'll go on to that newspapers.com website. You hear me mention that every week because it is my go-to tool for getting ready for the show each Wednesday night. And so sometimes I'll go in search of a theme or a particular topic. And I've gone after looking for example, Bugs Barringer photographs, Charlie Killebrew photographs certainly, and other photographers from Rocky Mount. And so this week I thought, I knew Charlie took a lot of aerial photographs, and I thought it would be neat to look for some of his aerial photographs and share those with you. And I found a bunch, quite frankly, more than I expected to. And so we're going to get to those in just a minute too. But while I was looking for all these aerial shots, I stumbled across a couple of pictures that really surprised me. And the first one, Lee, if you would put up item number 1, this picture was taken, appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram August the 8th, 1965. And it shows a residence, and I'll read the caption here to you. I know the picture's kind of grainy, kind of hard to see, but the caption reads, "Move over. This stately home, purchased from Mrs. Margaret R. Daniels by the State Highway Commission, is now being torn down by Reich Wrecking Company of Winston-Salem to permit extension of Gray Street in the foreground into the west end of Grand Avenue. State workers are also cutting a new section between the east end of Grand Avenue and Fairview Road. When completed, scheduled for June 1st, 1966, the city will have a loop on Grace and Grand Avenue downtown from NC 97 east to the south end of Fairview Road." So if you're new to Rocky Mount, only been here in the last 30, 40 years anyway, you might assume that Gray Street has always, headed north on Gray Street anyway, has always bared around to the right and ended up there at the intersection of Church Street and Grand Avenue. I certainly did, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, item number 2, if you will, put this article up on the screen for our viewers. This was an article that appeared in 1965, June of 65, a couple of months before that picture was taken. And it says, "A bid for Grand Avenue improvement accepted." And it says, "The State Highway Commission has accepted a low bid of $262,000 by J.H. Valentine Company of Sharpsburg for improvements on the east and west extensions of Grand Avenue in Rocky Mount." And it goes on to talk about what they're going to do. And it says, "When completed, Grand Avenue will make a loop around the central business district to enable motorists to get from one side of the city to the other without going through the central business district. At the northwestern end, Grand Avenue will connect to Gray Street, formerly Bunn Street, and at the eastern end, Grand Avenue will connect to Fairview Road via Warren Street, cutting across Raleigh Street. The loop will continue into Cokie Road when a section is completed outside the city by the State Highway Commission. The project is described as a .924 mile grading course, aggregate-based course, bituminous concrete binder, servicing and course on east and west extension of Grand Avenue." So this was the article that appeared that kind of laid out what they were going to do. And so I thought, well, you know, it would be neat to go back and look and see how that area appeared before all this change took place. So I went back as far back as I could go looking for maps of Rocky Mount. And lo and behold, I found a map from 1907. Lee, item number 3, if you would, on the screen for our viewers. By the way, this map, if you want to get a close-up look at it, it's hanging on the wall in the local public library. It's a really neat map. It's about a 4-foot by 4-foot map, so it's big enough to see in some detail. But I've highlighted in yellow here some key points about this extension. To your right, that yellow line going off diagonal to your right, that is Gray Street coming in from the south, headed north. That on the far left-hand side of your screen, that street that comes at an angle and abruptly turns and cuts back, that's Grand Avenue. And that kind of looped in the line in the middle, the left side of that loop is Bunn Street, and if you notice, it kind of goes right into like a question mark and just kind of abruptly stops there amongst the trees. So in 1907, Gray Street, as I said, came in from the right-hand side of your screen there, that yellow line I've got highlighted, and it literally stopped. That street that goes across there is Gay Street. Now, if you think about how far it is from Gay Street all the way to Falls Road and then curve around to get to Grand Avenue, that's a right good junction there, a right good jaunt, I should say. But that's where Gray Street stopped. That where you see that yellow line stop at, that's Gay Street, and then that was the end of Gray Street. And then, as you see on the picture there, and by the way, on the left-hand side of the screen, that white curvy line is Falls Road. So you're looking at, from the left-hand side, you're looking at Grand Avenue, and you'll notice Grand Avenue comes in and then abruptly turns and runs parallel to Falls Road, and it actually goes through by Avent Street, goes into Columbia Avenue, and comes all the way up to the back of Rocky Mount Mills. So you could actually come from Grand Avenue and go all the way to Rocky Mount Mills and bypass Falls Road. How about that? Okay, so that was 1907. By 1950, item number 4, Lee, item number 4, and this is just a sample section I took from this map. It was a much bigger map. But this is showing the yellow line at the top of your screen there. That's Gray Street as it comes in. And I'm sorry, that's Grand Avenue. I misspoke. That's Grand Avenue at the top of your screen, top right-hand corner. And the yellow line that comes up from the bottom of the screen and kind of turns to the right, that's Gray Street. And you'll notice it goes up a little bit further and stops at Falls Road. By 1950, Gray Street had advanced from Gay Street a few more blocks all the way to Falls Road, but had stopped there. And so you still couldn't get to Grand Avenue from Gray Street unless you turned left or right on Falls Road and went one block and then turned back. You could get back on Grand Avenue that way. So this was 1950. All right, fast forward a few more years. Item number 5, Lee. In 1957, this map appeared, and it's when we get it on the screen there, we'll share that with you. There we go. So what you're looking at here, and again, this is 1957. That's Gray Street that comes up from the left of the screen and comes up and curves to the right. Grand Avenue comes up from the right-hand side of the screen, running over to the left. And you see at this point, they're literally a block apart, but they're still not joined. So Gray Street and, at this point, Grand Avenue are still two independent streets that do not intersect at any point. Okay, so what happened in 1965 was they actually cut through, they tore that house, and I showed you earlier, tore that house down and extended Gray Street through so that it joined there, curved around, and met Grand Avenue right there at the intersection of Church Street and, of course, Grand Avenue and Gray Street all come together right there, where Rocky Mount Awning and 10 is, and that Williams Foods all right there. So anyway, like I said, if you didn't realize that, you'd have thought that that was always that way, and that loop would continue on. Grand Avenue would continue all the way around and eventually loop back around to Fairview Road and carry on back around that way. So it's just a neat little bit of history there about Gray Street that I did not know. I'm sure many of you probably did know this, but a lot of us didn't. Okay, Lee, if we could, let's move on then to item number 6. And it's ironic that I stumbled across this picture because it was only a week or so ago that another one of our viewers, Wallace Abernathy, and I were talking about Cornwallis, General Cornwallis, and his trek through North Carolina and down Halifax Road. He walked right by my house, in fact. But this picture and article, a little caption appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in July of 1956. And the caption reads, "A face in stone." And it says, little Penny Killebrew, daughter of staff photographer Charlie Killebrew, helps her dad with a photographic assignment at Hunter's Hill. The object is the great stone face embedded in a huge rock at the historic spot where Lord Cornwallis and his soldiers once camped. The little girl points to the eye on the face. Below and to the right are the nose and the mouth, and the other eye is on the opposite side of the rock. How the face got there remains a mystery. Now, I'm not sure if this is there's a couple of rocks in this vicinity, one on Halifax Road that sticks out of the side of a yard there, and there's another rock that's on Hunter Hill Road. The one on Hunter Hill Road has, ever since I was a small child, been affectionately referred to as Titty Rock. No offense anyone, that's just how it's always been called. The other rock, as I said, is actually comes out of the yard there on Halifax Road. And so I'm not exactly sure which one this is. It says Hunter's Hill, so I'm guessing this is the one that's protruding out of the side of the dirt there on Hunter Hill Road that we always referred to when I was a child growing up, and still to this day, in fact, as Titty Rock. But that's Charlie Killebrew's daughter there. And another neat story about that goes along with this, as Wallace was telling me, there's another rock on Stony Creek that has an indentation in the rock where supposedly Cornwallis had allowed his horse to drink. They, I guess, scooped out the dirt and everything from the hole and filled it up with water, and the horse drank from it. And so, anyway, that's I've read that story a couple times, and apparently there's some truth to it. I'm not sure exactly where that rock is, but it's supposed to be on Stony Creek, somewhere a little bit west of the intersection of Hunter Hill Road and Halifax Road. So anyway, it's a neat picture. I thought it would be fun to share with you. I just realized it's time for our first commercial break. So Lee, bring it back to me. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about Mack Haven. We're going to show you a few pictures of the interior of Mack Haven. It's a neat old house, obviously. It's a grand home, or it was a grand home. Now it's just a neat venue place. But we're going to show you some pictures of that, a few anyway. And then look at some really neat aerial photographs of Rocky Mount taken by Charlie Killebrew over a span of, 10 years or so. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitation and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't arise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
We're back. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. Glad you could join us tonight. Before the break, we were talking about, Charlie Killebrew took thousands and thousands of pictures around Rocky Mount, as did Bugs Behringer, and there was a half a dozen other photographers who also took pictures. But I find myself going back and looking at Charlie's pictures over and over again. And he just, over the years, have just been, something about Charlie Killebrew pictures that just always grasps my attention and makes me want to look at it again and again. And so, as I said earlier, this week I just kind of had an itch to try to find some more of Charlie's pictures, and I knew he'd taken a bunch of aerial photographs. We've shared some on the show in previous shows. And so I did some digging, if you will, and found quite a few. And we'll get to those in just a minute. But before we get into those, I also, as I was looking for those pictures, I stumbled across the previous picture I showed of the rock where Cornwallis camped. And I stumbled across these few pics of Mack Haven. In fact, in 1965, the Rocky Mount Telegram did a really nice expose on Mack Haven. And at that time, the home was occupied as a home by Mr. and Mrs. Marvin Robbins. Many of you may remember Mr. and Mrs. Robbins. But they lived in Mack Haven in the 1960s. And so they allowed photographer Charlie Killebrew, in fact, to come into the home and take some pictures. And so these are not really great. I apologize. The quality is not real good, but it kind of gives you a glimpse inside a really stately home in the 1960s. That is a showplace even to today. So, all right, Lee, put up item number 7, if you would. And this is a picture that Charlie took of the front of the house before he went in to do his photographic expose, if you would. Interesting point about this house, when it was originally built, there was a, what do you call a porticote? It was a drive-up area where horse and buggies would drive up and let people off, and it was, of course, covered. And the whole point was, in the event of inclement weather, you wouldn't get wet or get, rained on or whatever if you were riding on the coach. And it was on the front of the house originally. And so in later years, when horse and buggies were replaced by automobiles, that little porch area was taken off and the columns were added on. And so this shows the house as it was after the little porch on the front was taken off and the columns were added. But again, this is 1965. If you remember, Mac Haven was actually built by J.W. Hines. He was referred to as the Iceman. He ran the ice company here. He was involved in a lot of different things too. But in any case, he made his money primarily in the ice business, and he built his home, and it was affectionately named after his wife's family name. And I forget exactly what her name was now. I remember reading it, but I forgot what it was. It was something like McNeil or something like that. And so they actually took that part of his wife's name and then Haven for a safe place, and that's how Mac Haven came to be named. But this was November 28, 1965, when the Rocky Mount Telegram did this expose on the home located at 300 Gray Street, the ground surrounded by brick walls with the caption reads there. Okay, Lee, so let's go to item number 8 if we could. And this is, I'm not sure who Miss Irene Buckman was. I'm not sure she was a caretaker or housekeeper or whatever. But it says Irene Buckman cleans antique chess set in the drawing room. And Mr. Robbins is the family's chess player when time permits. And so I have no idea what happened to that chess set. I would imagine it was a very elegant, very nice piece of furniture in and of itself in the 1960s. But anyway, as you can see there, and again, these pictures are not great quality. I apologize again for the quality of the pictures. Anytime you take something that's already been printed one time into paper and then download it and resave it again, you lose some quality, and that's unfortunately, there's no way to get around that. Item number 9, if you would, Lee. This is just another aspect of the home, and the caption reads, Chinese ancestor dolls in the music room. Television set is hidden inside the lacquered cabinet. So I'm not exactly sure what a Chinese ancestor doll is, but apparently it was, they were collectible. It looks to be 2 or 3 there. And the cabinet, of course, has a television inside. So in 1965, television becoming more and more popular in homes, and so my guess is this is probably not the only TV in that house. It could have been. It certainly could have been, but such a stately home, such a grand home, my guess is they probably had more than one TV in the house. Okay, Lee, and finally in this group, well, there's one more after this. We'll go to item number 10. And this is Marion Blackburn riding what appears to be a hobby horse there inside the house by a grandfather clock. I'm really curious how much of this stuff is still in the home. I'm not sure if any of it is, frankly. But as I said at the top of the show, one of my goals going forward, hopefully we're going to start doing this next month, is to take a videographer and go in some of these old homes, these old buildings around Rocky Mount, and do a walkthrough, if you will, and kind of just give you an idea of what it's like in these buildings and these homes today, provided we can get permission to do this, and I'm hoping we can. And lastly, I think there's one more in this group, Lee, item number 11, and it's captioned, Exquisite Black Lacquer Screen in the Dining Room. Chinese designs are mother of pearl inlay. So, this was 1965. I think the house was built somewhere around 1907. So I'm not sure how much of this stuff was original to the home, but in any case, obviously, a home of this grand nature, I'm sure everything in it was first quality, very expensive most likely, and a lot of stuff was probably shipped in here from overseas. I'm sure, for example, these Chinese separating wall here was probably shipped in from China. But, it's just neat to look at these old houses and see how they were furnished back in the day when it was a home. And like I say, Mac Haven today is a venue now. They've gone in and refreshed it inside and out. And I understand there's already been like 5 weddings so far this year. And so you can rent it for all kind of events. Weddings, I think, probably are the primary thing that happens there, but certainly other events and meetings and so forth could be held in it as well. So anyway, I ran across another neat story while I was looking into this stuff, and it involves, of all things, a simple garage, automotive garage in Nashville. October of 1968. Lee, if you would put up item number 12 for us. The Telegram did a really neat story on this Thomason Garage in Nashville. And, outside appearances, it's a typical automotive repair shop. The caption reads, Thompson's Garage in Nashville, the haven of help for the alcoholic and the nucleus of AA activity in Nash County, Alcoholics Anonymous activity in Nash County. So this picture was actually included with the article. And Lee, item number 13, go ahead and put that up for our viewers too. I clipped the picture out of the main article, and there it is again, of course, in the article. But this is the half-page article that the Telegram did in 1968, October 68 is when it came out. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's a really neat article that says, basically, the people who had this shop and ran this shop, the Thomasons, started a Alcoholics Anonymous AA meeting there, and they would meet and allow other people who were having challenges and difficulties with alcohol to come and gather, and it was just it's one of those things where you would not expect a garage to house an AA meeting. But apparently, at one point, they had a dozen or so regular members come in to get help, get assistance, get support. And it was a really neat article. Like I said, it's a fairly long article. I'm not going to try to read the whole thing. But it's something I never knew anything about. I never knew that. I'm not even sure the building is still there. If anyone knows anything about Thomason's Garage in Nashville, feel free to give us a call. And again, 407-1111 is a number. Anytime during the show, if you've got a comment or a memory or something you'd like to share with us, feel free to give us a call, and we'll take your call and we'll talk about it. I was saying earlier that Charlie Killebrew, in addition to being a civic-minded individual and a local businessman in his own right, he was a heck of a photographer for sure. He was also a pilot, and he flew and he took pictures. And sometimes I have found out through a little bit of research I did, sometimes he would actually fly with someone else. In other words, he'd have another pilot doing the flying of the aircraft, and he would just take pictures. And so, and Charlie flew all over. It wasn't just Rocky Mount. I saw pictures from far away as New Bern and down around the coast, and certainly all within 20, 30 miles of Rocky Mount, in north, east, south, and west directions. And so I'm sure there are more pictures out besides the ones that I have found and going to share with you tonight, but these are some really neat pictures. And to me, sometimes the caption of the picture is as interesting as the photograph itself. So with that being said, Lee, if you would put up item number 14. This was March of 1951. This was the oldest one I have found. And for a better part of 10 years or so, Charlie went around taking pictures from the air. And this picture says, the caption reads, "This aerial view taken by staff photographer Charlie Killebrew shows two prime revenue producing facilities of the city. The power plant shown at the left with its towering smokestack, and the water plant at the right, also municipally owned. Frequent and expensive additions have been made to both plants through the years." And of course you see the city lake there in the foreground. And of course you can see it up in the very top right-hand corner, you see the Tar River flowing by there. But these, when I was a kid, especially in the early 1960s, both of these plants were operating. I remember in, I think, second or third grade, we even took a tour of the wastewater treatment plant. Not the wastewater, but the water plant there. And so, these have been an integral part of Rocky Mount. It's so nice now to see that they've taken the old power plant building there and turned it into a commercial venue. You've got Chico's over there, the restaurant. I think some other offices on the second floor and so forth. But it's just neat they took these old buildings and are getting new life from it, if you will. But this is a great old picture, and just one of many that I found. That being said, let's go ahead to the very next one, item number 15. This was also from March of 1951. And the caption here reads, "Two big problems. Nash and Edgecombe counties terminate in a tiny no man's land of steel at the Atlantic Coastline railroad tracks through the heart of the city. Rocky Mount's principal business district is shown in this aerial photo by Charlie Killebrew. Neighboring towns are also split by the ACL tracks, considered by many as a dividing line between the Piedmont and the coastal plain regions." So, we've shown aerial photographs of Rocky Mountain before, so this is not necessarily unique. But this particular one I had not seen. And there's a couple things to point out here. In the bottom left-hand corner, you see where that track kind of curves off to your left there, going off the screen to the left. There's a train station down there. You can see the old Rick's Hotel there, going a little bit further north there. As you follow up, there's lots of different businesses. People's Bank, Planters Bank are both visible at the very top of the screen on either side of the railroad track. People's Bank on the right-hand side, Planters Bank on the left-hand side. On the actual photograph, as it appeared in the paper, it's a little bit clearer than this, and you can actually make out some of the front of these buildings a little bit better. But it's just, Charlie took a lot of pictures, and he always seemed to get the right angle, and just really neat how he positioned his camera, and to do that while flying an airplane itself was a remarkable accomplishment. In 1953, Rocky Mountain Senior High School was built, and Charlie flew over Rocky Mountain Senior High School and took this picture, item number 16, if you would, Lee. And at this point, the school was not completely finished. They're still working on it, but I think in the fall of 1953, I think they did start classes there. And so, there you go. On the left-hand side of your screen, on the bottom left-hand corner, that's the Tillery Street there, and in the foreground, going left to right across the bottom of the screen, is Nash Street. And at the very top of the screen, going left to right, that's Hammond Street. And so what you're looking at there, B, B, and C, the caption reads, aerial view shows A, the auditorium, B, 2 classroom buildings, C, the vocational workshops, and D, C is vocational workshops and dressing rooms, and D is the heating plant. And so at this time, early 1953, March of 53, construction was still going on, but the buildings were completed. When I was there in the 1970s, there were walkways, covered walkways between the buildings. I'm not sure, I think they were probably there shortly after the buildings were built. But I know they were there when I was there. As you walk from one building to the next, you could walk under a covered walkway. In fact, it had concrete, and you could walk on concrete under a covered walkway. So as in the event of inclement weather, you could stay dry and so forth. But this is a neat old picture of Rocky Mountain Senior High School. The year it actually was finished up. I think it was finished in '53. I think they had classes later that year. Okay, item number, I'll tell you what, Lee, it's almost time for our next commercial break. Let's go ahead and break now. When we come back from the break, we'll get back into these. Got a few more of these to share with you folks, so don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about these aerial photographs. We'll take your calls. If you've got any memories you want to share with us, we'd love to hear from you. And again, the number is 252-407-1111, and we'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday. Take it away, Lee.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mountain area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
We're talking about Charlie Killebrew's aerial photography work, and Charlie was, he was a staff photographer certainly for Rocky Mountain Telegram for a number of years. I think he came to Rocky Mountain around 1947, 48, somewhere along in there, and began taking pictures immediately, of course. And I'm not sure when he got his pilot's license, when he started actually flying. Like I said, 1951 was the first picture I found, aerial photograph I found in the Rocky Mountain Telegram. There may have been others that predated that even, but that's the earliest one I found. But one common theme I saw with all these pictures is, as I said earlier, Charlie had a knack for framing a picture so that he got whatever he was trying to photograph in the center of the picture, and just got enough of it, without getting over-exaggerated. He got enough to get the idea across, the point he was trying to take a picture of. He got that across. And so it's neat to me to look at these old pictures and imagine what he was seeing as he was flying along. And I don't know, we were talking about the Civil Air Patrol earlier. I don't know if Charlie was involved with the Civil Air Patrol or not. I suspect he probably was. I know J.D. Winston here in Rocky Mountain, auto equip owner, flew a private plane. I think he was into the Civil Air Patrol, I've heard people say anyway. And Rocky Mountain has had several pilots over the years. We talked a little bit about tragically some of the ones who passed away. Bob Ryerson over in Battleboro sadly passed away back in, I think, 1985, flying his private plane. But we've had a fair amount of pilots here, private pilots, civilian pilots, and still to this day, for that matter, we still have several around Rocky Mountain. But in any case, it's just Charlie took these photographs. And the captions, I'm not sure whether Charlie did his own captioning or had someone from the Telegram do them. I'm not sure how that worked out. But the captions themselves, to me, are almost as interesting as the actual photographic content. So that being said, let's go ahead and lead item number 17. This article appeared August of 1954, this picture I should say. And every August, going back to the 1920s and 30s in fact, the newspaper always had a big spiel about tobacco market opening up. That was a big deal in Rocky Mountain's history. And so in August of 1954, this picture was taken, and you see the headline reads, "Tobacco Center to be seen of bustling activity next week." And the caption reads, "Rocky Mountain's tobacco capital, peaceful and quiet and apparently deserted when this photo was taken, will be teeming daily beginning Monday with thousands of farmers, tobacconists, and spectators as the 1954 market season gets underway. And this and other sales centers over the town, a total of 65 million pounds of tobacco was sold last year for $35 million. This photo, of course, does not present the entire picture of Rocky Mountain Tobacco Land, but it shows Tobacco Town as it is generally known. The picture shows Tobacco Town as seen from west to east. In the left foreground is a China American Tobacco Company plant. Imperial plant is just beyond with the smokestack. In the background from left to right are Mangum, Fenner's, and Planters warehouses. At the extreme left, just beyond clump of trees in the Falls Road Church Street intersection with another Easley warehouse just beyond. And it says here in parentheses, aerial photo by Killebrew from a Rocky Mountain Air Service plane. Bob and I talked about this week, and I think the Rocky Mountain Air Service was the predecessor to Air Care, what would later become Air Care. J.B. Winston, of course, ran Air Care up until very recently. It was sold, I think, last year to another firm, another FOB in another city. But anyway, this was, as I said, it was focused on what was referred to as Tobacco Town in Rocky Mountain. And at one time, oh God, we counted them up on one night show. I think it was somewhere around 13 tobacco warehouses in downtown Rocky Mountain at one time. And so, the importance of tobacco to this economy over the years cannot be overstated. It was critically important, probably none more important. You could argue the railroad was important too, without a doubt it was. But tobacco during that August season, when tobacco came to market, when the farmers brought the tobacco to market, in a matter of weeks, millions, in this case, they mentioned $35 million was worth of tobacco was sold during that market in the previous year, 1953. So that gives you an idea of what kind of impact tobacco and the tobacco market had on the growth of Rocky Mount over the years. Sadly, all of this is now gone. I mean, Rocky Mount's lost a lot over the years. And the tobacco market's closing up and shutting down and going away. Certainly had a negative influence and impact on Rocky Mount. And I'm not sure we'll ever get over it, frankly. But anyway, okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 18. Here's one that needs no introduction. If you're from Rocky Mount at all and seen this photograph 100 times, or similar ones to it, I'm not sure how many photos Charlie Killebrew took of Rocky Mount Mills, but it was several. I've seen this almost identical photo from slightly different angles several times. I must have 4 or 5 different photographs of Rocky Mount Mills taken from the air myself. This is one I do not have, or did not have, prior to finding this one. This was taken November 28, 1954, at least it appeared in the Telegram that day. I'm guessing it was taken sometime just before that. The caption reads, Rocky Mount Mills, North Carolina's second oldest mill, was destroyed by a fire when a Union Army detachment invaded Rocky Mount on July 20, 1863. The only building spared by the invaders was the residence of the mill's owner, William S. Battle. This is an aerial view of the mill as it stands today. And keep in mind, this was in 1954. The building spared by the Yankees is the white 2-story structure just to the right at the center of the photograph. It is now the company's main office building. So, and you can see a couple things to point out here. You can see the railroad track, the spur track that comes in from River Drive and crosses over River Drive and then curves around and crosses over Falls Road and goes around to the mill. You can see the there's the schoolhouse ground. I think that's what that is in the bottom right-hand corner. You don't see the actual building, but I think that's where the Rocky Mount Mills School was on that lot right there. And I think I'm not sure when they tore that school down. I'm not sure if it was there in 1954 or not. But anyway, that's Falls Road, of course, running diagonally across from left to right on the screen there. And anyway, like I say, this is just one of several aerial photographs I've seen of Rocky Mount Mills. And I've got some that are actually better quality than this. But anytime I run across a photograph that's got a caption to it, I always save it to my collection because, again, it adds to the photograph when you've got that historical context in the caption down there. We've talked about, we just mentioned the railroad and the Emerson shops and the impact that outfit had on the history of Rocky Mount when it was operational. And certainly it was also a major contributor to Rocky Mount's growth and history over the years. Item number 19, Lee, if you would. This picture was taken August of 1955. This aerial photograph of the Emerson shops down at South Church Street. And a couple things that you can recognize right away here in this picture. The upper right-hand corner, you've heard us talk about the roundhouse. And you can see the round structure there in the upper right-hand corner of this photograph. That is the roundhouse. The caption reads, Railroad shops. One of Rocky Mount's larger industries is the Atlantic Coastline Railroad. An important aspect of that industry is the expansive railroad shops above, located in South Rocky Mount. It is in this area that repair work on locomotives, coaches, and other equipment is carried out. At the height of the Emerson shops and the ACL Railroad's business operations in Rocky Mount, this was a tremendously large industrial complex. I think it would actually rival some of the shipbuilding stuff you see up, for example, up around the Norfolk area up there. I mean, it was a major operation. They did all kind of repairs on the locomotives. They did repairs on the passenger cars themselves. It was just a massive operation. I think I've read at the peak was 2,500 employees working there. That number, I'm sure, varied from time to time, but still, it was obviously a major employer in Rocky Mount. And when I was growing up, there was only a handful of places if you could get a job working at these places, you almost had it made, and one was the railroad. The telephone company was another place that had similar expectations. And I think the City of Rocky Mount certainly, over the years, has been considered to be a good employer for those who work there and retire from the City of Rocky Mount. But it was a massive industrial complex, hired a lot of people, brought a lot of revenue into Rocky Mount. And like the tobacco business leaving town, when Emerson Shop shut down and ACL closed its operation here, that hurt Rocky Mount too. You know, we've been hit between the loss of the railroad and the loss of the tobacco industry, and Floyd coming in 1999, it just boom, boom, boom over a span of 30 years or so. Rocky Mount just got beat up by things out of our control. And so to our credit, we're hanging in there, but it's been a rough last 30 years for sure. Okay, Lee, let's move along then. Item number 20. This picture is from October of 1955. And I'll read the caption here. You may already recognize this. It says, "The modern highway appearance. Complicated roads leading in all directions may be seen where the new Highway 301 bypass runs under 64 west of Rocky Mount. Northbound automobiles on the new road wishing to get on Highway 64 will enter on the road on the far right. Southbound traffic will enter 64 on the road on the far left, leading off the new highway. Cars wishing to get on the new highway from 64 may enter from either side of the bridge." Obviously, this is right there at Tarrytown Mall. And so this was well before Tarrytown Mall, of course. 1955, Tarrytown Mall wasn't thought about yet. But neat picture showing the new bridge there going over Highway 301 and the cloverleaf, if you will, Rocky Mount's version of a cloverleaf anyway, there between Sunset Avenue and 301. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 21. This picture is captioned, "The Site of Edgewood Park." This aerial photo made by Telegram staff photographer Charlie Killebrew shows the site of Edgewood Park, a development of which was announced by Wimberly and Gregory. The 93-acre park lies east of Fairview Road, shown in the foreground. A section of U.S. Highway 64 is shown in the upper left-hand corner. Work will start in the spring on handsome air-conditioned homes. So this was a subdivision, 1956, over there by Fairview Road, and as you can see, that says elementary school on the left-hand side of your screen. D.S. Johnson School would become built there in later years. But Edgewood Park, as it was called at that time, was being developed here in 1956, and you see over on the right-hand side of the screen, from there all the way to the far right-hand upper corner there, it's just fields. And of course now it's all houses out there and subdivision and so forth. It's amazing how much growth has taken place in this area over the last 60 years or so. All right, moving along, Lee. Item number 22, August 1956. The caption reads, "New college site." And we can get that up on the screen there for our viewers. Item number 23, there it is. Here's an aerial view of the new proposed site for the 4-year Christian college to be established. This 200-acre tract of land in Nash County has a frontage on the US 301 North, shown in the center of the picture, and it runs left to right across the screen there. The rural road shown at the lower left is the back boundary of the site, and the road lower center is the southern boundary. The northern border is about 100 yards short of the farm road upper left. The wooded area in the center is part of the college site. The Atlantic Coast Line Railroad runs parallel to this main north-south highway in the upper right-hand side. So you've got the railroad run up there, and you've got Highway 301, and this big rectangle-shaped area is where Wesleyan College was to be built. And then item number 23, Lee, we're going to come back to Wesleyan College in a minute, but this picture shows Bienvenue School. Many of you remember Bienvenue School on Bienvenue Road. It says one of the largest school plants in the area is boasted by Bienvenue High School. In the left background of the picture shown here is the latest addition to the school, which has grown steadily through the years. You know, I remember Bienvenue School. I never attended there, but I remember the school being there. My mother went there, in fact. I know several other folks who went there. It was, by all accounts, a really good school. I've heard a lot of good things about Bienvenue School over the years. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead then. Running low on time. Item number 24 from August of 1957. This is another aerial shot of downtown Rocky Mount. A little clearer than the other one. It says, "This handsome new aerial photograph of Rocky Mount made by Charlie Killebrew gives a clear view of the heart of the business district and part of the tobacco district. Main Street and the railroad are traced from a point north of Thomas Street down to and including the Rick's Hotel and almost to Hammond Street. The towering brick chimney in the background is at the Export Leaf Tobacco Company. Buildings along Washington, Howard, and part of Church Street are shown along with those on the east-west streets from Hammond to Thomas. Just a neat old picture here of downtown Rocky Mount. And again, the original is actually clearer than this, and you can actually make out more of the detail in these buildings. So I'm sorry these are not as good as they could be. Real quickly, let's jump to 25 and then quickly jump to 26. I got a little bit out of sequence, but I wanted to mention this one here is the college layout again of Wesleyan College. And then go ahead and Lee. This is from June of 1958, by the way. June of 58, this picture. And then Lee, item number 26. By October of 58, they had built 6 buildings here in a span of 4 months. June, July, August, September, 5 months. They built 6 buildings, part of Wesleyan College. I think that's going to do it for us. I didn't get through all of them. We'll try to get the rest of them next week. But that's going to do it for us tonight, folks. Lee, bring it back to me if you would. Folks, it's been my pleasure to be with you tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got more to share with you next week. We're going to look at some more pictures, a few more aerial photographs. Going to do a little more research too on the Civil Air Patrol. I'm kind of interested in that, see where that takes us. So we'll look at that next week too. One last comment on the on-site visits. If you've got somewhere you'd like to see us visit and do some video footage of a building, a home, or a historic building of any nature, let me know. You can call me on my cell phone, 252-883-1123 is that number, or you can call the station here, 407-1111, and just let us know, hey, I'd like to take a look inside, whatever, and we'll try to get a film crew out, take a look at it, and put it on a future show. That's going to do it for us tonight, folks. Take care of yourselves, be kind to one another, and we'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.